I've started this out by drawing in all of my times, what my cash flow will be, and what my balance is. I'm going to start putting in these numbers from above. 175, 301, 96 gives us a balance of 175, 301, 96. Then I start putting in these 35,000, and I'm going to go ahead and fill the rest of that out while I pause. For every year, all we're doing is taking the balance from, let's say, year 0, and then I'm going to add that 35,000 to it. Negative 175 plus 35,000 is negative 140,301.96. I paused there, fixed the spacing a little bit, and started filling this out. At the end of year 4, I have a debt of negative $35,301.96. When I add $35,000 to that, my debt is only $301.96. So that means somewhere between 5 and 6, when I add another $35,000, I move from a debt situation or a loss into a profit. So at this point, I'm going to have a profit at the end. So when I look at this, the first thing I'm going to say is we do have a profit. Overall, we will make money. $99,000. That's not bad. But what we're going to look at is our payback, our net present value, and our IRR. Let's start with payback. We know it's between 5 and 6, and between 5 and 6 for the most part is good enough, but I'm going to go one step further and show you how this would be if you want it to be exactly perfect. So I'm going to say payback is going to be 5. The first year where the last year where there's a loss is year 5. Then what I do is I add to that a fraction of the amount of loss here, that's 301.96, over the amount of revenue I got over the next year. This is, so 301, 35, and 5. Those are the numbers that I'm using to come up with this payback. And when I dump that into a calculator, I get 5.00863, or we get our payback a little bit after year 5. Next, we're going to look at the net present value of this business. I am going to look at all these cash flows and I'm going to put them in the calculator. So the first thing I'm going to note is that first cash flow is negative 175,301.96. We know that. Our next cash flow is $35,000 positive. And here I am going to say that happens 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Next, I've got my final cash flow, which is $65,000, and that only happens twice. I'm going to take a second and I'm going to add those two up. Sorry, that only happens once. 6 plus 1 equals 7, and it's a 7-year project. So add these guys up and make sure that they add up to your time span. If they don't, then you know you've made an error. Okay, let's look that over. So I do second cash flow, and you can see the example from lesson 18 in there. So I'm going to say second clear. First things first, type in those numbers. Okay. And then we've got 35,000. That happened 6 times. Finally, we put in 65,000. And that happened only the 1 time. Okay, pressing net present value. And what was my IRR here? Or my minimum annual rate of return was 12%, which means that my net present value is negative $2,000. Should we invest? I mean, it's negative. I can't tell you for sure if you're going to invest just because it's positive, but here, by the NPV criterion is the single of that, The net present value is less than 0, so no, we're not going to invest. What about the internal rate of return? How far off are we? Well, we go to IRR and press compute, and we end up with an internal rate of return of 11.66%. That's not a bad idea. This is a pretty reasonable investment. It's just not as good as 12%.